Have you ever noticed how the people who speak the least often command the most attention? The ones who don't show up all the time, who don't respond instantly, who aren't always available. They're the ones who seem to hold some invisible power. You might not realize it at first, but the truth is, the more available you are, the more people take you for granted. And the less accessible you become, the more others start to notice, wonder, and chase. It's a paradox, but it's real. In a world obsessed with visibility, being unavailable is a silent power move. When you make yourself hard to reach, not out of arrogance, but out of intent, you force the world to come to you. You create mystery. You create demand. You disrupt expectations. Most people are predictable. They're always online, always replying, always showing up, even when no one asks them to. And what happens? Their presence loses its weight. Their words lose their value. When you're always there, people stop listening. But when you disappear for a while, when you hold back, when you reserve your energy, suddenly, every word you say carries more meaning. Every move you make becomes something people notice. Being unavailable isn't about playing games. It's about understanding value, your time, your energy, your attention. These things are currency. And like any currency, when it floods the market, it loses its worth. Think about it. Diamonds are valuable not just because they're beautiful, but because they're rare. If they were everywhere, no one would care. It's the same with you. Constant presence equals emotional inflation. You give too much and you devalue yourself. You're always there and you become background noise. The truth is, people are drawn to what they can't easily access. It's human nature. We chase what retreats. We crave what isn't guaranteed. And when someone becomes slightly out of reach, when their attention feels like a privilege instead of a given, that's when curiosity kicks in. That's when desire is born. Most of us are trained to think availability equals loyalty or kindness or professionalism. But if you're always available, you may be giving people the illusion that your time isn't worth much, that you're waiting around, that you don't have better things to do, and whether they mean to or not, they'll treat you accordingly, because people respond to what you signal. And if your signal says, "I'm always here anytime, no matter what," then they'll take until you're empty, until you're resentful, until you wonder why no one respects your boundaries. But here's the secret. People can only violate boundaries that you haven't enforced. They can only consume what you offer up too easily. That's why becoming unavailable strategically, intentionally, is a form of self-respect. It tells the world, I value my time. I choose where to invest it. I'm not a product on a shelf. You don't get me just because you reached out. You get me when it matters. You get me when I choose. And that simple shift changes everything. Suddenly, your silence speaks volumes. Your absence becomes presence, and your presence becomes unforgettable. The people who are truly respected aren't the ones shouting the loudest or showing up every 5 minutes. They're the ones who leave just enough space for you to feel their absence. They're the ones who make you wonder what they're up to. Not because they're hiding, but because they're busy building, growing, evolving. They're the ones who don't need to say, I'm important, because you can already feel it. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Being unavailable doesn't mean being cold or rude or distant. It means being purposeful. It means choosing your focus rather than having it stolen. It means stepping away from the noise so that when you return, people actually hear you. In a hyper-connected world, distance is power, silence is volume, mystery is magnetic. And if you learn to master your presence, not by increasing it, but by refining it, you'll discover a new kind of influence, one that doesn't beg for attention, one that commands it. So if you feel like people aren't valuing you, maybe the answer isn't to give more. Maybe the answer is to pull back, to become a little harder to reach, a little more selective. Because when you stop chasing, you start attracting. And when you stop being available to everyone, you become unforgettable to the right ones. We live in a world that constantly demands more. more access, more replies, more appearances, more of you. But here's the truth no one tells you. The more available you make yourself, the less valuable you become. Why? Because human psychology is wired to crave what it can't easily have. This is the scarcity principle. It's not a trend. It's not a trick. It's hard-coded into how our brains work. When something is rare, we automatically assign it more value. That's why limited editions sell out. That's why out-of-stock products feel more desirable. That's why the people who hold back their time, their energy, their attention, they seem powerful. They seem worthy of pursuit. You've felt this. Everyone has. Think about the last time someone took forever to reply to your message. Did you get annoyed? Maybe. But be honest, did a part of you also start thinking about them more, wondering what they were doing, why they hadn't responded? That's scarcity playing with your mind. It's not even about liking someone more. It's about feeling their attention is rare and your brain automatically labeling it as more important. And that reaction isn't random. It's psychological design. The brain sees limited access as high value. That's why people chase celebrities. That's why people fantasize about what they can't have. That's why mystery always outperforms availability. Because the moment something is always there, always reachable, always visible, it stops being special. It becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, the mind stops fighting to earn it. So here's the truth that most people are too afraid to admit. If you want to be valued more, you need to be seen less. You need to reduce your frequency to increase your impact. You need to stop offering your time like it's a free sample at a grocery store. You are not for mass consumption. You are for those who deserve your presence, who earn it, who respect it. When you become rare, people start questioning how they lost easy access to you. They begin reflecting on their own behavior. They revisit conversations. They reread your messages. They rethink your silence. And that's when value skyrockets. Not because you begged for it, but because you withheld it with dignity. Scarcity flips the script. Instead of chasing validation, you make others wonder if they even qualify for your time. And this shift in dynamic is subtle, but powerful. It's not about arrogance. It's about worth. You are allowed to be selective. You are allowed to protect your space. You are allowed to treat your presence like it matters, because it does. The moment you stop seeing yourself as always accessible is the moment others start seeing you as someone worth reaching for. You become less about convenience, more about intention, and that change is magnetic. Think about high-ticket items, luxury brands, exclusive memberships. They don't chase customers. They create barriers. They make you apply. They make you wait. And what happens? Demand increases. Desire intensifies. People justify paying more, waiting longer, working harder, because the thing they want isn't easy to get. The same principle applies to you. When you stop showing up everywhere, when you stop responding to every call, every text, every ask, you stop being easy. And being less easy doesn't make you less kind. It makes you more respected. Because respect is rooted in restraint. It's built on boundaries. And boundaries teach people how to treat you. Without them, you're just another option. But with them, you become a privilege. And privileges are never taken lightly. They are appreciated. They are protected. They are earned. So the next time you feel the urge to say yes too quickly, to reply immediately, to make yourself overly available, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from confidence or from fear? Am I giving access because I choose to, or because I'm afraid they'll forget me if I don't? That question will tell you everything, because power isn't in saying yes. It's in knowing when not to. It's in choosing quality over quantity. It's in realizing that scarcity is not a lack. It's a strategy. It's not about being less. It's about being worth more. And the moment you embrace that mindset, everything around you shifts. People pay closer attention. They reach out more deliberately. They approach with care. Because now they know Your time isn't cheap. Your energy isn't unlimited. Your presence isn't guaranteed. And once people understand that, they stop taking you for granted. They start showing up differently, and you, in turn, start living with more clarity, more peace, more intention. Not everyone deserves access to you, and that's not selfish, that's sacred. Scarcity makes you unforgettable. So be bold enough to protect your value, be rare, be intentional, be unavailable, because that's where your power begins. We've been conditioned to believe that being constantly available is the path to connection, relevance, even success. Always responding, always showing up, always saying yes, because if you don't, someone else will, right? But here's the brutal truth. When you're always on, you become predictable. And predictable means forgettable. In a world saturated with noise, presence without purpose gets filtered out like background static. People stop noticing you not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've given them too much. Too much of your time, too much of your attention, too much access. And the more they get, the less they feel. That's how emotional numbness works. When you're always there, people stop feeling the weight of your presence. They expect it. They take it for granted. You go from a unique signal to just another notification. And the worst part, you start burning out in the process. You exhaust your energy trying to stay visible, when in reality, it's your absence that would make them notice. You lose your edge because you've made yourself common. You've become too easy to reach, too quick to respond, too desperate to be included. And what started as connection turns into depletion. Every time you say yes out of fear, you betray a piece of your worth. Every time you force a reply when your soul wants silence, you erode your own boundaries. Every time you stretch yourself to be everywhere, for everyone, you disappear to yourself. And slowly your sharpness fades, your voice blurs, your power softens into compliance. You become someone who's always available, but never truly present. You're there, but not felt. You're seen, but not remembered. And deep down, you know it. You feel the dullness, the fatigue, the quiet resentment. You wonder why people don't reciprocate the energy you give. But it's not their fault. You trained them to expect you for free. You taught them your time had no cost. You created a pattern of overexposure, and now you're suffering the consequences of emotional inflation. Your presence isn't valuable anymore because it never gets a break. But here's the truth no one taught us. Silence is part of your signal. Distance sharpens perception. Pause creates presence. When you stop talking for a while, your voice gains weight. When you step away, people reevaluate your absence. They remember what it felt like to have you around. They ask why you're no longer there. That's how attention works. It doesn't chase consistency, it follows contrast. It follows the highs and lows. The moments you choose to show up, not the ones you're pressured into. Because forced presence is invisible. It doesn't create impact. But chosen presence, it hits like thunder. It lands with intention. And that's what you need to reclaim. Your edge, your impact, the gravity of your presence. And the only way to get it back is to pull away from the constant need to be on. You don't owe anyone your endless attention. You don't have to prove your loyalty by showing up 24/7. True power lies in being unavailable, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself enough to stop bleeding energy everywhere. Imagine your attention like water. If you pour it everywhere, everything gets a little, but nothing grows. But if you choose where it flows, if you're intentional, something starts to bloom. Same with your presence. Choose it, reserve it, guard it. Because it's the one thing people will chase if they feel it slipping. Not when you're begging to be seen, but when you've stepped back enough for them to notice the space you leave behind. And if you keep showing up every time, for everyone, just to stay relevant, you're not powerful, you're replaceable. Harsh? Maybe, but necessary. because you weren't born to be on demand. You weren't built to be a live stream for others' needs. You were meant to be a presence, not a push notification. Your energy deserves reverence, not routine. Your mind deserves peace, not pressure. And your life deserves to be led, not leaked out through constant replies. So start honoring your limits. Start owning your time. Start letting people miss you, because that's when your presence becomes real again. That's when your words start hitting deeper. That's when your silence gets louder than the noise you used to make. And most importantly, that's when you start living from power, not performance. The edge isn't found in availability, it's found in restraint. It's not about how often you show up. It's about how powerfully you do when you choose to. There's a strange truth we don't talk about enough. Sometimes the most powerful way to make someone feel your presence is by not being there. Absence breeds desire, it sharpens memory, it pulls emotions out of hiding and makes people feel things they didn't even know were there. And while we spend most of our lives trying to stay close, to stay connected, to stay relevant, what we often fail to see is that closeness without space kills tension. And without tension, there is no longing, no pull, no fire. Think about a song. It's not just the notes that make it beautiful. It's the silence between them, the pauses, the rests, the space where nothing is played. That's where the emotion breathes. That's where the melody has room to move you. And in human relationships, it's the same. Constant access dulls curiosity. Predictable presence kills appreciation. The people who are always around, always talking, always inserting themselves, they might be noticed at first, but they rarely get remembered, because desire isn't built on abundance, it's built on absence. It's born in the moment someone wonders where you went, why you stopped calling, why the room feels quieter without you. And that wondering is where the emotional pull begins. When you step away, when you stop pouring energy out like it's endless, you create space. Space for people to feel the value of your presence. Space for emotions to rise. Space for questions to form. That space becomes your power, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're giving people the gift of missing you. And missing is underrated. In a world addicted to instant replies and permanent visibility, no one gets a chance to miss anyone anymore. Everyone is too available, too responsive, too plugged in, and as a result, attention becomes shallow, feelings become diluted, desire fades into expectation. But if you remove yourself just enough, if you disappear not out of spite but out of self-respect, something shifts. People begin to replay memories, they rehear your voice in their head. They reimagine your presence, and in doing so, they form a stronger emotional connection to you than they ever did while you were constantly there. Because the human mind romanticizes absence. It fills in the blanks. It edits the silence into significance. It turns space into longing, and that longing makes people care deeper. This is why emotional distance isn't always a problem. It can be a tool. A psychological amplifier, a way to create presence by withholding it. The trick is in the balance. Too much absence and you fade away. Too little and you lose your mystery. But just enough? Just enough makes you magnetic. Just enough leaves a gap that people feel. And in that gap, connection grows. Look at artists. The great ones don't release new work every week. They step away. They retreat into silence. They disappear into creation. And when they return, the world pays attention. Why? Because the space created hunger. Because the silence created room for impact. You can do the same in your relationships, in your career, in your self-worth. Stop fearing the quiet. Start using it. Let people wonder where you are. Let them miss your voice. Let them feel the lack of your presence and realize what it meant. And here's the key. You don't need to explain your absence. You don't owe an update every time you take space, because your time is yours. Your energy is sacred, and your absence does not make you less. It makes you felt. You're not abandoning anyone. You're honoring yourself. You're allowing space for the truth to emerge. Who cares enough to reach out? Who values you without constant reminders? Who actually notices when you're gone? That's what absence reveals. The real connections from the performative ones. It filters the noise. It shows you what matters. And in return, it makes your return more powerful. People pay closer attention to what's been missing. They lean in. They listen harder. They don't just hear you. They feel you. So if you've been afraid to step back, afraid that people will forget you if you disappear, ask yourself, what kind of presence are you maintaining right now? One that's genuinely appreciated, or one that's simply expected? Because if you're only showing up out of fear, then you're not being felt anyway. You're just filling space. And space doesn't need to be filled. It needs to be respected. Because in the end, it's not always your presence that brings connection. Sometimes it's your absence that does the real work. The pull you create by stepping back. The value you reveal by disappearing. The clarity you offer by letting silence do the talking. So don't be afraid to vanish, to go quiet, to reclaim your energy, to reset your presence. Because the people who truly value you, they'll notice, they'll feel it. And they'll wait for your return, not out of obligation, but out of desire. And that's when you'll know. Your absence didn't weaken your worth. It magnified it. Becoming unavailable isn't about playing games. It's not a tactic to manipulate attention. It's not a performance to appear powerful while secretly begging to be noticed. No, this is not about tricks. This is about truth, because real unavailability is born from inner clarity, not outer calculation. It's not pretending to be busy. It's being genuinely selective. It's not silence for strategy. It's silence for self-respect. You don't become unavailable to control people. You become unavailable to control your energy, to take back your time, to protect the part of you that's been drained by too much giving, too much showing up, too much explaining, pleasing, performing. To become unavailable with intention means you stop saying yes just because you're afraid of saying no. It means you stop giving instant access to people who haven't earned your presence. It means you build a filter, not a wall, but a standard. A way to choose where your time goes and, more importantly, where it doesn't. Because when everything gets your attention, nothing gets your depth. And depth is what changes things. Depth is what makes relationships feel rich, what makes moments feel real, what makes you feel alive. But you can't have depth without boundaries. You can't have growth if you're constantly on call. And you can't build a life of value if you're living in reaction to everyone else's urgency. That's why unavailability isn't about hiding, it's about rising. It's about pulling your energy out of what's not aligned and reinvesting it into what is. It's about shifting from reacting to curating, from being everywhere to being exactly where you're meant to be. And that requires courage. It's easy to say yes. It's easy to reply. It's easy to show up out of guilt, out of fear, out of habit. But to pause, to protect your peace, to delay that response, to choose silence over validation, that takes power. That takes inner strength. That takes knowing your value isn't proven by availability. It's protected by it. So how do you do it? How do you become unavailable with intention without becoming cold, disconnected, or arrogant? You start by getting brutally honest about your priorities. Who drains you? What distracts you? Where does your energy go that never comes back? Audit your calendar. Audit your conversations. Audit the people you allow into your daily emotional world. Then decide. Decide who gets your full presence. Decide who gets your silence. Decide what gets your yes, and learn to make peace with saying no without guilt. Because here's the truth, most people never learn. When you say no to what's misaligned, you say yes to what's meaningful. And when you say yes to yourself, the right people will feel it. They'll see that you're not ignoring them. You're protecting something. Your creativity, your rest, your growth, your sanity. And the ones who truly belong in your life will never punish you for doing that. They'll respect it, they'll match it, they'll rise with you. Because becoming unavailable doesn't mean you become less loving. It means you love with more intention. You listen deeper, you show up fully, but only when it matters. You stop leaking energy and start living deliberately. You become someone whose time means something, and that changes everything. People begin to approach you differently. They come with more respect, more care, more thought, because they know you're not always available. And that means when you are, it means something. That's what intentional unavailability gives you, not just space, but significance. And from that space, you elevate. You elevate your standards, your peace, your presence. You stop chasing crumbs and start building tables. You stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop being convenient and start being resonant. And all of it begins the moment you say, I don't need to be everywhere. I don't need to be accessible all the time. I don't need to prove my worth through availability. I am allowed to pause, to retreat, to rest, to protect, to reset. And in doing so, I become more powerful, more focused, more alive. Because real value doesn't beg to be seen, it simply is. And the world eventually learns to adjust to your rhythm, not the other way around. So no, this isn't about control. It's about clarity, about showing up from fullness, not from fear, about becoming unavailable, not to punish, but to evolve, to stop living like a vending machine and start living like a mountain, solid, grounded, unmoved by noise, felt even in silence. That's what true power is. Not louder, not faster, not busier, just clearer. You don't owe the world your constant presence, but you do owe yourself the space to rise. So take it. There's a fear that creeps in the moment you decide to become unavailable, the fear of being alone. The idea that if you stop showing up for everyone, no one will show up for you. That if you stop responding right away, you'll be forgotten. That if you create distance, the people you love will disappear. And that fear is loud. It's emotional. It tells you that solitude is punishment, that silence is rejection. But the truth is this: being unavailable doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're aligned with yourself, with your values, with your truth. And when you're aligned, you don't lose people. You lose the illusion that you needed to be everything to everyone just to be loved. You stop trying to keep relationships alive through over-giving, over-explaining, overextending. You stop fearing space because now you understand. Anyone who leaves when you create healthy boundaries was only there because you didn't have any. Anyone who fades when you take a break was only drawn to your performance, not your presence. And anyone who needs you to be constantly available to feel secure was never loving you from a place of truth. So no, you're not alone. You're just no longer in rooms you don't belong in. You're no longer performing for attention that doesn't feed your soul. You're no longer addicted to the dopamine hit of constant interaction. You're choosing something deeper, real connection, real energy, real alignment. That's what this journey is about. Not isolation, but integration. Bringing your attention back home, pouring into yourself without guilt. Creating space not just to rest, but to remember who you are when you're not performing. And from that remembrance, you become magnetic. You attract people who respect silence, who value depth, who don't need constant access to trust your loyalty, who can hold space for your growth without demanding your presence as proof. And that kind of connection, it's rare, it's quiet, it's powerful, because it's built on mutual alignment, not emotional urgency. It doesn't cling, it flows. It doesn't chase, it resonates. It doesn't shrink you. It meets you where you are and celebrates your expansion. But you can't find that kind of connection if you're constantly available, if you're always on, if you're stuck in survival mode, trying to earn love through overexposure. That's why becoming unavailable is an act of love, not just self-love, but real love. Because it teaches you who's meant for you. It filters the shallow. It reveals the deep. It creates space for clarity. And in that clarity, you finally stop mistaking noise for connection. You stop mistaking presence for intimacy. You stop mistaking proximity for care. And you begin to see that your solitude was never a threat. It was a teacher. It was showing you that your own company is not a placeholder. It's a foundation. That you are not less because you need space. You are more because you honor it. And those who are meant for you, they'll understand. They'll meet you in that space with their own grounded energy. They won't flinch at your silence. They won't question your pullback. They'll feel your absence and know it's not distance, it's depth. So let go of the fear that unavailability means loneliness. Let go of the guilt that says you must always be present to be loved. Let go of the story that your value is tied to how much you give. Because it's not. Your value is in your being, in your clarity, in your peace, in your standards, in your rhythm. Being unavailable means you've stopped negotiating your worth through exhaustion. It means you've stopped giving people discounts to stay in their lives. It means you're finally walking in alignment with who you are, not who the world told you to be. And that alignment will cost you some things. It will cost you fake connections. It will cost you the need for approval. It will cost you the comfort of being everywhere. But what it gives you in return, presence, power, peace, purpose, is worth everything. So don't confuse quiet with emptiness. Don't confuse boundaries with rejection. Don't confuse stillness with invisibility. This is not your isolation. This is your evolution. This is you choosing to live from wholeness. This is you protecting your flame so it can burn brighter. This is you becoming unavailable, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. Not because you're punishing, but because you're prioritizing. And the people who matter, they'll meet you there, in the calm, in the clarity, in the realness, because they're not looking for someone always available. They're looking for someone authentically aligned. And that person is you.